Hello there, this is Alex from phpacademy.org. I'm creating this PHP video for the New Boston. Now in this video I'm going to be talking loosely about functions, why they're useful in PHP or in fact any other programming language, and also how we can create a function and use a function within our page. Now first of all, what is a function? A function is something that allows us to declare a block of code that we might want to reuse. We can feed in parameters to this, or arguments as they're sometimes referred to, or usually referred to, and then we can use this at different parts in our code to save us retyping code out. And as per the name, functions, they will do something. So they will do something that will allow you to declare them and then reuse them over and over. So the standard syntax for a function is function. We have two brackets and then we have a block here denoted by two curly brackets, an opening and a closing. Now inside here we'll go our arguments. In this video I'm not going to be dealing with arguments, I'm just going to show you how we're using a function and how to call it. So we already know that a function is used to speed up basically our writing of our program by keeping some code that's going to let us or declaring the function and a lot of code. Now what we haven't done is given this function a name. I forgot to mention that. We're going to give this function a name, and this is going to be called my name. You can write it any way you want, small, with camel caps, anything really. So we'll use a capital M and a capital N just so we can see. So it's really important that you name your functions well. My name doesn't really tell you what I'm going to do, but it could do and it might not. It depends on who. If you're writing to an audience, say people are going to see your code, as long as you know what it is, and if it's staying personal to you, that's absolutely fine. So in this I'm just going to simply echo out Alex. Now let's just suppose in my code, let's just bring this down, I want to echo out Alex a few times. So for example, echo my name is, and I want to break down. Now I'm just going to call my function my name down here. Now what this is going to do is it's going to echo out my name is, it's going to line break down, and then it's going to call this function. We call it simply by its name and then just two brackets like that. Arguments would usually go in here, but in this purpose of this short tutorial I'm not talking about arguments. And then as always we end with a semicolon. So the result I want from this is to echo out my name basically after this sentence here. So let's test if it works. We refresh and you can see it says my name is Alex. Now obviously we could take away this line break and just include a space here, and you can see that it has exactly the same use. This is obviously a useless function. It would be a lot easier to declare it, or not declare it, but type my name over and over again if I needed to. But this example just demonstrates how to create a basic function and what it does. I mean, for example, in our function we might want to echo out a specific variable that we don't want to keep redeclaring in our page, but then again that might be useless as well. So I mean, functions can be used for different things. Obviously depending on your program you just have to think logically about it, but for now this is an example of how you declare a function. I've talked about why they're useful, and in the next video we're going to look at passing arguments to functions to create something that's maybe a bit more of use. Okay, this is Alex from phpacademy.org and I'm creating this tutorial for the New Boston about functions, and this time we're going to be passing arguments to our function. I've already spoken about why functions are useful, but I'll recap. Functions are useful in code to shorten the amount of code you do have to write, and you can refer back to these functions, which is called calling a function, and it will process the same code every time you call. And we set up a function like this. We have function, we have the name of the function, we have a block of code, and the code goes in here, and we call the function simply by calling the function name. So this is the standard syntax that you would expect to find in a function. Now, what if I want to create a function that's going to add two numbers together? Now, this is a sort of real life example of why you might use a function. You may have a program that simply does add two numbers together. You might take user input, you might take number 1 and number 2, and you may need a function to add these two numbers together to save, repeating this code. It's always good practice to use functions as well, because they structure your code a lot better than if you're doing things on the fly. By calling functions, especially with arguments, you're saving a lot of time and you're making it look a lot better, a lot easier to read as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of this calling here, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to call this function add. Now, inside this function I need to specify which arguments I want to bring into the function to be able to use, and these are in the form of variables. So I want number 1, comma, number 2. So I'm feeding in two different numbers. Now I haven't specified the variable type. I haven't specified if these are numbers or string. It doesn't actually matter. That depends on how you deal with everything inside your function here. So my function is going to add two numbers together. Now what I want to do is I want to echo out this particular result. So I want to echo number 1. Now this is in reference to this. So the arguments up here must match when you reference them inside your function. So number 1 plus number 2, and then we've just echoed that out. So now if we call our function, first of all I'm going to show you, I'm going to call it without any arguments inside here, just to show you what happens. So let's refresh. Now you can see that we've got a warning come up, which is missing argument for 1, or missing argument 1 for add. So it's telling us the first argument is missing for this named function, and it tells us where it's been called, and it also tells us where our function has been declared. It's also missing an argument 2 for the same function, called in the same place and defined or declared in the same place. And then it's actually given us our result. So we obviously want to now include some numbers. So what I'm going to do is up here I'm going to say number, or I number 1 equals 10. I just for me stands for input, so, and I'm going to say I number 2 equals 5. So by the end of this, when we've created this, we should have the result of 15, because 10 add 5 is 15. So we're going to add these two numbers together. So when we call our function down here, we want to specify these two variables. Now these two variables will then be passed through. I number 1 will be passed through to number 1, and I number 2, I number 1 and I number 2 can be called absolutely anything. You could call it sort of num1, n1, anything you wanted, but I'm just using these so we can keep an eye on it. So I number 1, comma, I number 2. That's all the arguments that we need to pass. So these two variables here are going to be interpreted here, and then they're going to be processed here, and we're just echoing out the result of this. So now let's refresh and see what we get. We get the result of 15. So let's change these variables around a bit. We'll say 22 add 8, this should equal 30. So let's refresh and see if everything works. That's fine. Okay, so now what do we want to do if we're wanting to pass, let's say, a number and a string? So let's create another function. Let's delete everything and start again. I'm going to create a new function called display date. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to feed in the day, the date, and the year. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is echo day, and we want to append a space. Then we want to append date, append another space, and append year. So obviously our day here is going to be in string format, because it will be either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way up to Sunday. Date is going to be an integer, and year is going to be an integer. So what do we need to do to be able to say, well, we need to read in a string, and we need to read in two integers? Well, the answer is we need to do absolutely nothing. As with variables on their own, PHP is going to handle this for us. So now I'm going to call the function display date. I'm going to type in Monday 31 2011, just for an example, and now the result of this will be Monday 31 2011. So it's doing exactly what we've asked it to do, even if we combine variables. So that's functions with arguments being passed in PHP.